I understand the next call is a split call. Dr. David Clark.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that member would do well to take a leaf out of his own book, explaining that yelling doesn't make things true. I found the irony of that delicious, just delicious. And I fear that member has not read the bill, because the connection to the previous legislation that was passed, the GCSB legislation, is not in dispute here in this House. The Law Society, acknowledging that this legislation, this type of legislation, is responsible for striking a balance between privacy and security, made a very full and adequate and interesting response on the GCSB bill and on the tax bill, the related pieces of legislation. And if I can read from their submission on this bill, the Law Society says in paragraph 2, the Law Society notes that this bill is intimately connected with the Government Communications Security Bureau and related legislation amendment bill for that member's benefit, and the justification or otherwise of its intrusive objectives. The Law Society has expressed its concerns, and let me read a little bit, one or two of those concerns from the GCSB submission by the Law Society. The bill changes the Government Communications Security Bill from being a foreign intelligence agency to a mixed foreign and domestic intelligence agency. The bill empowers the GCSB to spy on New Zealand citizens and residents and to provide intelligence product to other government agencies in respect of those persons in a way not previously contemplated. And that is inconsistent with the rights to freedom of expression and freedom from unreasonable search and seizure under the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act, and with privacy interests recognised by New Zealand law. They go on to express their concerns about the urgency process, the undue haste of this government to get this legislation through without the checks and balances that New Zealand society, indeed most Western countries, expect of their governments. This is a terrible process, it is a terrible piece of law, and that is coming from a body that is moderate, that's criticism aims to be fair and independent. That is coming from the Law Society, who pithily and clearly explain why the GCS bill and its accompanying tax legislation are appalling for New Zealand. The tax bill imposes on the telecommunications networks operators obligations to assist the government on network security matters where they may raise a risk to New Zealand's national security or economic well-being. That is what it says in the bill, and those aspects of the bill have not been defined. That is another reason why this legislation is sloppy. It is not defined what is in the national interest, what is in terms of New Zealand's economic well-being within the scope of spying activities, and what falls outside it. The sloppy legislation does not define that. There is no oversight mechanism that sufficiently captures whether we should be doing these things or not, and then it goes on to give ministers draconian powers to use these provisions. The Minister of Police, the Minister responsible for the SIS, the Minister responsible for the GCSB. And we know these people do not in themselves always get things perfect. Certainly, the history to this legislation, the background, the context, was the Minister responsible for the GCSB coming into criticism, sharp criticism, for spying on Kim.com. And that was against the murk of the appointment of Ian Fletcher, where the Prime Minister couldn't remember the fellow, and then he kind of could remember the fellow. And then, oh, well, it turned out he was the brother of one of his friends. And then, oh, he may have actually called him to tell him to apply for the appointment. He had a major brain fade on these issues, what is becoming known as a touch of the Banksies, I think, in this House. John Key then went on to be questioned on the Kitteridge report. He went on to be questioned on those illegal cases of spying. The .com one was not the only one. And this GCSB bill and the TICS bill that follows that we're debating today go on to try and make those kinds of illegal spying on New Zealand citizens legal. And that is outrageous, without any kind of checks and balances that would provide New Zealanders with the confidence that the spy agencies are acting in their interest and not in overseas interests, Mr. Speaker. This government is distracted by spying on people in their homes. It should be focused on bigger issues. It should be focused on employment and jobs, on policies like New Zealand Power that will make power affordable for New Zealand homes, Kiwi Build, building houses for New Zealanders, Kiwi Insurance to make sure that people can get insurance for their houses, and the other reforms that Labor is proposing to bring in.
Order.
This bill is not relevant for this House, and it's a bad bill.
Order. Order. Order.